Digital marketing seems to be the mystery that most entrepreneurs struggle with, and real estate investors are no exception. The truth is, there are multiple avenues to success. Those experiences will be best shared by the guests on this podcast. My name is Jason Wright, and I would like to welcome you to Real Estate Investor Marketing Stories. What is happening, everybody? It's Jason Wright, the host that you thought quit. I didn't quit. Been busy with a bunch of different stuff, and we've been recording podcast episodes, believe it or not. Just haven't released any in far longer than I would have ever planned, so my sincere apologies. But guess what? We got lots of new episodes coming out. As always, get into some of my random thoughts. Hell, where do I begin? What is my excuse? What have I been doing that's been so important that I haven't been making podcasts? Well, we moved from Indiana to Georgia. That's not new news. October, honestly, was probably my heaviest travel month of the year. Not my heaviest, close to it. If not number one, number two. I did 3 events in less than 3 weeks. Let's see, where did I go? Went to the Raised Masters retreat down in New Orleans and came home for maybe a week. 4 days a week, something like that. Went up to Beardsley's event in New York City and then flew straight from New York City to Carefree, Arizona, which is a northeast suburb kind of Scottsdale. And then had an event in Scottsdale with Paul Montalongo and his group. And it was smaller gathering, a retreat, a real cool experience. All of it was cool, but that's an exhausting amount of travel for a husband and father and guy that's got 2 companies. So it was a lot. And then, you still try to get settled and all that from the move. And then you blink and it's November. And then it's like, oh shit, we got Thanksgiving coming up, so here we are. But Thanksgiving is past at this point. It's November 28th, the time I'm recording this intro, although the episode content's older than that. So anyway, we're back with a vengeance and excited and indebted to you to bring you some more great guest conversations. My guest today, another good dude, client of mine. I've met this guy in person. His name is Trevor Scelso. He is the founder and CEO of 20 Plus Capital. He is a combat Marine with several deployments to Iraq. And he is a short-term rental investor and a short-term rental management company owner. So got into short-term rentals for kind of his piece of the real estate investing game that was interesting to him, which I like, very interesting to me as well. And he built his own short-term rental management company out of necessity because nobody else was doing it at the level that he really expected and needed. So good conversation. Let's dive in, shall we? Let's check it out. Hey, Trevor, welcome to the show. How's it going, man?
Great, man. Great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell me about your journey into real estate investing. I'd love to hear this.
Yeah, man. So I got into real estate investing in December 2020. I closed on my first house as an investment. I was originating mortgages, and I don't know if you heard, but the rates were really good in 2020. And so my business was also doing really good as a mortgage originator. I'd been doing it for a couple of years at that point. So I was already there when it happened, when things started going crazy. And so I was just working a lot. I've never worked that much in my life. Also, I had not made that much money at any point in my life up to that point. So I needed a way out, really. And a friend of mine posted his Airbnb on Facebook. And I was like, that was like a light bulb moment. I was like, I could do that. I can buy a house, I have access to these great mortgage products. I know them really well, and I can get myself some better rates than I'm giving my clients, which have shattered every record in the history of mortgages. So I did, and within 18 months, I ended up purchasing 3 single-family homes and operating them as short-term rentals, and built out a management company at the same time because we just couldn't find competent managers. Had partners on one house, and so we formed a management company to operate our own homes, and then started operating other people's homes as well. They also invested in additional homes, and it just we just had a really couple good years of just really diving into every aspect of short-term rentals. And last October, completely walked away from mortgages. I'm 100% focused on short-term rentals at this point.
Awesome, man. I love it. Short-term rentals is still a good space to be in, isn't it?
I would say so. It's very easy to lose money now, I would say. Whereas when I started, fortunately for me, right place, right time, it's very difficult to lose money, actually. Prices hadn't skyrocketed either, and rates were super low. So, you were almost guaranteed to make some money just because the acquisition and holding cost was so low.
Yeah.
Now and there was a lot less competition on Airbnb at the time as well. I wasn't the only one that had the idea to get into the game. So now you got to be very selective and very strategic about how you move forward. But the return potential is still incredible.
Yep. So do you still have the property management company as well?
Oh yeah. That's moving along pretty good. It's pretty well stepped up at this point. We've hired sales reps to help grow because I see a really strong demand for affordable, competent management. Yeah. So we're pushing that out nationwide.
Nice, very nice. Yeah. So I was telling you before we went on air today that we bought a new house in coastal Georgia. And one of the ideas I had for this house was like, hey, maybe we could short-term rental this. But I was like, we're in Martinsville, Indiana. There's nothing really here. So probably not the best market. My wife's like, yeah, we're not doing that crap. Let's sell it and move on. So I think if we were in an area that actually made sense where people would come, maybe it's worth talking about more, but there's no reason for people to be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, there needs to definitely be tourism, if you will, or regular and frequent and abundant travel to the place. Absolutely, that's a prerequisite.
Yeah, and if it were 40 minutes north, like in Indianapolis, I mean, I think there's enough going on there. It might make sense, but not here. So, all right. So you focus on short-term rentals. Is there any certain markets that you focus on, or how do you approach those?
So at this point, I look for places that are not only well traveled to, that's like we just spoke about, but also that have some really strong recession resistant parameters. That's been a big concern for a lot of people lately, and rightfully so. And what I've found is the country is littered with locales, zip codes, cities, even metros that did not experience a real estate downturn when the rest of the country did.
Yep.
Or when 70 to 80% of real estate markets tanked. Those 20 to 30% that didn't, I've been really interested in those and the reasons why they didn't tank. And is that a reason that still exists today?
Yep.
And I'm finding that the answer to those questions is yes, across many local real estate markets. The same is also true of hospitality economies. Just all the same things are true. And then like finding the places where those intersect, where they have vibrant, and by vibrant, I mean resilient. I just simply mean like slow and steady real estate price growth, right? They don't have really strong upswings, and then they don't have really strong downturns. That's what I've really noticed about real estate economies, is the one that are just like stable growth year after year. It's like the same last year as it was this year, regardless of what's going on in the national economy. Those are the places where I would call investing in real estate the safest. And hospitality economies are the same places that are just enjoying slow and steady growth in their greater economy and in their hospitality economy in particular. So it's more of a characteristic of the local economy that I look for than I have like, I'm really interested in Scottsdale, right? Which is a hot place to invest in short-term rentals, but Scottsdale is also like one of the first places to go when an economic downturn occurs. So, like I said, I've been just looking for characteristics of an economy mostly.
It's really interesting when you think about that. You think about, all right, the U.S. housing market, right, or short-term rental market. Then you start breaking it down to these individual areas. It's so neat how like even within a city there can be parts of the city that are hot and parts that aren't. So it's as I learned more about this stuff and talk to more people, it's kind of perplexing how much more complex it is than it seems. You'd think, oh, well, this area is probably this or that, but if you start to dig in, I mean, it can vary even by like neighborhoods and things like that. So pretty neat.
Even by streets. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, especially when there's some locales where it's like I would only get property if it was on the water, right? On the lake or on the beach.
Yeah.
One street back, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So same thing, there's one town that has a really, really big local attraction. And I'm mostly only interested in investing on the north side, the homes on the very north, the neighborhood just north of it. Just south of it, not so much. And for some reason, that seems to they do better there. So yeah, it's just like you said, it's really interesting the nuances that you can find at the local level.
Well, let me ask you, like in regards to short-term rentals and Airbnb, how important is like the marketing, like the pictures and descriptions? That stuff matters a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, so pictures are your most important asset for marketing, for sure. It's the first thing people see. And your first picture is the most important one. It's like the one that they actually scroll past or stop and look at and then click to learn more. Yeah. We get professional photography for every home, and oftentimes we do more than one photography shoot. As we update, right? Because it's definitely not a set it and forget it, right? Like you put it out there, you get feedback from guests, the market just evolves, and you improve the property, and we'll reshoot it. Right? So or we'll reshoot the same exact house just because, we want slightly different angle and lighting.
Yeah.
It's so important. Yeah. So that's and island description too, for sure.
Yeah. To be able to capture like a nice sunset in a really cool area it makes a lot of sense. So that's an example that makes total sense. So let me ask you, as you kind of have started to grow this, what simple marketing strategies have helped you get traction, getting investors into your business? What's working for you?
Or, at first it was just making good active income, just investing our own money. That, and then, as far as like people that we know saw it and wanted to participate. So that was, at first it was just like osmosis or word of mouth. Nowadays, as I'm delving more and more into, bringing in just, investment dollars, other people's money into deals that I run, that I operate, and people truly invest passively. They don't sign on the mortgage, right? Like that level of investment. Social media content has gotten appointments booked on my calendar, right? People just sneak into my DM, if you will, when they see my content, and I do intentionally try to make my content that way, and as a general rule, leading with education and just kind of fire hosting people with information. And then the towel I offer is my help, right? To just like, I'll do it for you. I've been doing some webinars lately. That's been gaining pretty good traction, getting people in front of me. But it's all geared towards conversations ultimately, right? Like, when I was doing mortgages, I feel like there's a lot of parallels. As a mortgage, you never close a transaction on the first conversation. Yeah. It's a process, right? You're buying a house right now, and I assume you're probably getting a mortgage, right? You probably had more than one conversation with your loan officer, So to me, it's a lot like that, and I measure it the same way I did doing that. It comes down to conversations. There's initial conversations and follow-up conversations, and the more of those you have, the more business you're going to do.
I love it. I always say conversations lead to conversions, and some people don't seem to get that. And I'm like, the people that you know in your real life and the relationships you care about, that's what you do. So why would it be different online? So now what social channels are working best for you?
Instagram's been going really good for me. Now, I resonate the most with real estate and mortgage brokers because that's what I was doing before. And I understand all their headaches, right? It's like why I got into short-term rentals, just escape all the headaches I was having in that business. So I largely speak to them when I'm speaking.
Yep.
And as a result, those end up being the type of people that kind of get into my DM. So that's well, your question was I actually just forgot it, but I think I answered it.
Yeah, it's basically saying, what's working for you? How are you getting new investors into your world? And, what you're talking about, speaking to a former version of yourself, it's always the easiest avatar to focus on because, like you said, you understand the language, the pain points. And when somebody sees that content, who's exactly your target, they'll be like, man, this guy's talking to me, right? And that makes it easy. And everybody else is like, this isn't for me, and that's fine. You want that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'd rather, tiny audience strategy, right? I'm fine with 1,000 or 2,000 followers that are all highly engaged.
Oh yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that my avatar, as you said, it's pretty well confirmed. They're all on Instagram, so that's what works for me. I think there's other professions that are more heavy on LinkedIn or something else, but Instagram's been going pretty good for me.
Nice. I like it. So throw you a little bit of a change up here. What would you say is the biggest mistake or the biggest regret you've had so far with your marketing?
With my marketing, that I didn't do it sooner.
Yeah.
I would say that, so early in 22, I decided I wanted to focus my business on investors, my mortgage lending business, and essentially try to maintain this mortgage lending business and this, helping investors in short-term rentals. What it really came down to is I was half-assing two things instead of whole-assing one, and is what prompted me to walk away from lending. But I didn't really nurture people like I should have. I would, getting investors requires even more nurturing than getting someone alone. I wasn't really strategic or diligent about social media, about attracting, nurturing, educating, and converting leads. So I just kind of free-willed it, I guess. Thought I'd kind of figure it out, and I didn't get into a mastermind until the end of 2020 that actually focused on the marketing aspect of raising investment dollars. So, I wish I'd have started that at the beginning of 2020 instead of at the end. But that's not the biggest regret. Just didn't start marketing properly sooner.
Yeah, it's a common realization that people had. I mean, I'm guilty of it as well. But the fortune is in the follow up. The nurture is where it's made, and it's like I'll say this all the time. The content matters, but not as much as you might think, because people will forget the content, but they'll remember how you made them feel. So the touch points is really where the magic is. It's the brand awareness, right? It's just the other way to look at it. But that's where, for like our business, that's the stuff that I've seen that's just unbelievable. Staying in people's heads, top of mind, whatever it may be. Sometimes I take risks, and like recently I announced a cigar club I'm working on putting together, and I haven't seen that many unsubscribes in a while on my email list, but it was fine because the response makes it so worth it. I was like, the response far outweighs 7 people leaving who I don't even know who they are. So no worries, but sometimes you need to take chances and risks and see what happens, because you may have an angle or something that works really well that you've never tried. So take some risk and see what happens,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Can you share a story about your real estate investing journey you haven't shared publicly before? So what we're trying to do is just get to know a little bit more about you. Most people say something funny. Sometimes there's a lesson, but it can be anything you want to.
A real estate story?
Yeah.
Man, and that I haven't told before. I mean, I'm kind of an open book, so I talk about all of it.
Okay. Or you can share your favorite, whatever comes to mind.
Oh, any good one. I just tell you one that kind of stands out to me. It's a success story, but I definitely made mistakes when I first started investing in short-term rentals. Fortunately, those mistakes were covered by really low interest rates and holding costs and prices that hadn't gone up so high. On the first one, by the second one, I kind of think I'd gotten things figured out, and it was in Williams, Arizona, and I bought this house, operated it profitably, and it was, I think, returning at about a 20% cash on cash rate of return just from operations, and ended up selling it right after. I have this habit of when I buy real estate after I've owned it for a year, I prefer to hold the property forever, infinite returns, right? But there's always some price I'll sell it at, so I might as well put that on the MLS. Yeah. And so I did that with this property, and it sold, man. Like, someone bought it, and it was 40% appreciation in 1 year time, which was well above even the explosive growth that time frame was seeing, and even in that locale. So I'm not sure if I actually forced appreciation or not, but because I did sell it to an investor, and I actually still managed the home. Right. But it happened, man. It was pretty cool, and that's definitely at least a tip that I would give to anyone. Like, no matter what your hold period is, list it now. There is some price that you'll sell it for right now.
Yeah.
And who knows, someone might be willing to just buy it.
Yeah. People can't buy what's not for sale publicly,
Right. Exactly.
So very cool. I like that. All right. Let's say that you had a conversation today with a brand new person wanting to raise capital. What one piece of advice would you give them about their marketing?
I would defer back to the conversations thing, right? Like building relationships. That is my number one measure of how successful I'll be in the future, is like just talk to your prospective or ideal investors as much as possible. The more you talk about what you're doing, the better. But aside from that, as like a simple measure, just take action, right? Like whatever initial idea you have to market yourself, to attract investors, just start, because it's so easy to just think about it and spend all of your time learning and very little to no time prospecting and producing, investments. So just start.
I think it's great advice, and this is kind of unrelated, but you'll appreciate this. I used to, a long time ago, I used to do like some consulting on like starting a podcast, right? When a lot of people hadn't done so. This is probably 6-7 years ago, a long time ago. I talked to this guy, and he was like, yeah, I've been wanting to start a podcast for a little while now. I've just been kind of scared to get started. So I've been researching it, right? And I was like, how long have you been researching it? He's like, 9 months. I'm like, bro, just record something
right
out there. Like you'll improve it as you do it, but what are you waiting for? 9 months? Just do it. And I don't know if not, but that's kind of an extreme example. But yeah, like when I started this business almost 8 years ago, for like the first year to year and a half, it was like self-improvement books and listening to other people and watching other people only, right? I didn't really do anything. And then I got to a point where I was like, it's time to get paid. So I need to start doing stuff, right? And I started, you get to the point where you fail so often, you're like, failure is that litmus test that I'm trying something. So if you stop failing, you're probably not doing much, or you're kind of staying in the comfort zone of what's working. So that's how I'm wired. That's how I go with. But yeah, at the end of the day, or when in doubt, just act, just take action, and you're going to learn things along the way for sure.
Absolutely, man. You got to be comfortable with the fact that like you said, you're going to fail. Like you can't figure it all out beforehand.
Yep.
Just go and fail.
Yeah.
Learn so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're recording this the end of June 2023. As you kind of look forward to the rest of this year, what are you most focused on in your business?
Growth in both sides of things. I want to grow my portfolio. I want to help other people participate in that, leverage my skill set with their money.
Yep.
And grow their dollars. Same thing with the management company. I have sales reps. So like my really big focus is helping them grow their business, my sales representatives, and in turn growing the management business. So we're in growth mindset right now.
I love it, man. I think you'll do great. Okay. So for anybody watching or listening, if they want to learn more about you or what you've got going on, how can they do so?
They can definitely visit my website to learn a bit more about me, 20pluscapital.com. That's on the investment stuff. Or if you want to get to kind of know my personality, Trevor, Scelso Actual, my Instagram handle. If you're ready to chat right away, because I'm open book. I'll talk about short-term rentals all day long with anyone, and see if there's some way that we can collaborate in some way or another. 702-660-1120. Shoot me a text. My phone does not ring or make any noise at all, so text me. I'll follow up.
There you go. Sounds great. All right, man. Well, I really appreciate your time today. I like what you're doing. I like your vibe. I like the confidence. I think you'll continue to kick butt and take names. So thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the show. I had a great time making it, and I hope you really enjoyed yourself listening to it. If you want to keep up with all things Real Estate Investor Marketing Stories podcast related, I encourage you strongly to go to reimarketingstories.com and signing up for our podcast newsletter. We will simply keep you up to date with what's going on at the show, new episodes, and things like that. reimarketingstories.com. So hopefully today's episode and the other episodes that you'll listen to will remind you that as a real estate investor, everybody starts at the beginning. okay? Our guest today and the other guests that you will hear on the show will share their real story, right? They'll tell you what worked, what didn't work. And I want you to remember one thing, if you remember nothing else today. It's possible for you too, okay? Never stop going and keep following your passion. Finally, today's show has been brought to you by capitalraisingautomations.com. If you're an active capital raiser and you are ready to learn the 3 areas that are holding you back from raising more capital, I strongly suggest you check out capitalraisingautomations.com. Check out our free 10-minute video there, and you let me know if it doesn't provide you value. I'm sure it will. All right, thanks again for listening to the show this week. Hope to see you next time. Take care.